Welcome back to Q Dads, guys. It's me, Ben, and yes, you are here today for the first episode of our Q Dads Expanded. And this is where we touch on those theories that you guys have, we have, and we're just going to expand on them that little bit more. So, this is obviously going to be just audio only, guys, not much on the screen for you. So, grab yourself a cup of tea, sit down, and let's go, because this one is about severance and the fact that all this relates to the quantum consciousness theory or the quantum mind theory. So obviously there's a lot of Apple shows that me and Steve absolutely love, like Dark Matter or Constellation, and both of those shows are quite heavily invested in quantum mechanics and entanglement, moving from one reality to another that only exists when you actually observe it. It's so complex and my mind can barely understand it at all. But we believe that the latest episode of Severance has actually given us a clue that the whole experiment is about quantum entanglement, or what I'm actually calling it is quantum consciousness, because it is slightly different. So, just to give you a little bit of information into the quantum consciousness theory. So, quantum consciousness essentially suggests that quantum mechanics may play a crucial role in the functioning of our own consciousness. And we're going to relate this theory back to how Mark S. and the other innies within the severed floor all react with it. So, quantum consciousness essentially suggests that the state of being aware of and able to think and perceive of one's surroundings is the fundamental theory in physics that describes the physical properties of nature at the scale of atoms and subatomic particles. So it's proposed that consciousness arises from a quantum process within the brain and suggests that the brain itself is a product of quantum state, meaning that the entanglement or superposition exists within our own brain, our own mind. And throwing this back into Severance, that essentially means that through the chip that we see implanted in every severed individual actually awakens or gains access to this other conscious state that exists only on a quantum level. And this is where, at the moment, it's kind of like we in Severance are acting as Schrodinger's cat and the observer at the same time, because when we enter that quantum state, and somehow through this chip and through the elevator, the frequencies are able to kind of separate themselves, it switches over to a different person, a different state, a different kind of wavelength within the brain. Now, theoretically, yes, all of these wavelengths and different states exist simultaneously with the one that we currently experience. But it's only until we observe them that they then become a reality, which is kind of what the lift does in a way. And this can kind of be put into a bit of a terms about feeling familiar or a sense of repeating ourselves, that kind of deja vu feeling. And that's because actually, are those thoughts already on a quantum level? Do our memories already exist? And just sometimes the odd wire crosses here and there and allows us to momentarily glimpse into the other quantum state. And of course, with Severance, we are able to access this quantum level and we're able to separate another version of ourselves, but to exist within the same mind, the same body, like we see in all of our innies and outies. And when going through the lift, that entanglement process actually stops the transfer of information and allows both identities or frequencies, shall I say, to exist at the same time without kind of interfering with one another. And like I said, and that is because the quantum state only exists until it is observed by someone. So yes, in this instant, the mechanics of the lift or the elevator, which we've not really touched on before, actually act as the observer and forces the wave function to collapse and switch to another identity. Meaning that Mark, technically, is both the observer and Schrodinger's cat, in a way, because whilst he's in his innie version or his outie version, the other side technically is both dead and alive, any kind of presumed state until we observe it. And the only way we observe that is by going through the lift and switching that function to make it become an actual reality that is tangible here and now. And this all stems back down to the actual department as well, MDR. Now, it's been touched on before that Project Cold Harbor was working towards Gemma's memories, or kind of fixing that mindset of Gemma, which it still could be, and I'll touch on that in just a moment. But more importantly, I think MDR are now working on the prevention of this quantum entanglement and allowing both quantum states to exist at the same time without any kind of collapse. So MDR's role within the severed floor is actually quite vital and could be the reason that they all continue to stay severed without any kind of detrimental effect. But what about if they are working towards Gemma? So we've all seen them get this chip implanted into their heads, which then allows them to change frequency when they go in the lift and access a different quantum state. Now, what about if the MDR team, and more in particular Mark, is actually working on Gemma's mindset, and all these numbers that he's moving through are the good numbers and the bad numbers, which kind of represents the different areas of quantum mechanics, the good, the bad, and what they need. I'm not a quantum mechanics expert, so I'm not going to dive deep into it, but those numbers could kind of relate to that. And the reason they're getting all the good ones in is so then someone in another department knows what quantum state to access for the ability to bring back Gemma. That's a possibility not only for Gemma but for other innies out there. But then we have to even stretch this a little bit further as well, expand it even more. So what about if now the MDR team are working on these numbers to allow the scientists to access a certain quantum state of any individual? But what about if that can go even further than just the two? So we're not looking at an outie or an innie. We're now maybe looking at a lefty, a righty, a forward, a backward. You get the message. Because technically, like we've seen in shows like Dark Matter, there's an infinite number of possibilities, an infinite number of quantum states that exist just only until observed. So what about if we can observe more than two frequencies at the same time? Now, at the end of the episode that we saw in episode 3, we did see, before Mark was kind of merged back or entangled back to his one frequency, there was a kind of a moment where we saw 4 different sections. I think it was something to do with some salt or some powder that was moving, and the frequency of what was being adjusted went to these different states. Obviously a representation of Keir Egan and his 4 virtues, I believe. But what about if that represents as well different quantum states? And actually we could be looking in the future towards the end of this season or season 3, another version of Mark, a third Mark. And then just to wrap up this quantum theory, what about, and this is a bit of a strange one, but what about if the floor itself, the severed floor, represents the human brain? And what I mean by that is, we've got the floor with the goats, the mammalian nursery. What about if that represents, the human animal instincts and that section of the brain? MDR is obviously the main central hub where we access all of our neurons and, the data that kind of gets put throughout the rest of the brain. And even O&D could be the creative side of the brain, with the art that's there. Now, yes, it's a little bit of a wild theory, that one, but just think how far this could go. And that's why each section within the severed floor is vital as the others, because they all represent different areas of the human brain and how to kind of access this different quantum state. So, of course, that was us expanding on the quantum consciousness theory, and I hope that you enjoyed that. And of course, if you think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments, but let me know why and your thoughts, because in true British fashion, like me and Steve, we absolutely love a good debate. So Hit us in the comments, we'll debate it with you. I'm happy for that. And you know what? We might even expand on your theory if we do like it, because that's what this Q Dads Expanded is all about. So do you think that we are now seeing part of quantum consciousness? And do you think that in the end of the season or season 3, we will see a different version of Mark, similar to how we saw in Dark Matter with infinite versions of Jason? Let me know in the comments. And of course, let me know how we did today. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time with something new.